I picked out 4 problems from the review that I sent you guys in Myopenmath, and the others I was going to do from that 100 problem review, just because it's multiple choice and that's what your test is. It's real hard to make a multiple choice review, and so that's why I didn't try to do that in Myopenmath. So if you want something else, just please feel free to pop in and let me know. Okay? All right, so just a little bit about the exam. I probably already mentioned it, but we'll say it again. Okay. It is 30 questions, multiple choice. You will get 2 hours and you'll write your work out and upload it just like normal. This one is through HonorLock. I did change the due date. I felt really bad making it on Easter. So I moved it out to the next day, April 18th. You can do it anytime between now and then. I can't go later than that because I have to get grades ready. So that's pushing it a little bit, but that's okay. I can make that work if anybody wants that. One of the hardest things to me about this exam is that the questions are all mixed up. They're not in order like the reviews. And I would argue for that for you guys, but nobody listens to me. So, and we're given, the department final. So how I would approach it when I see a problem, if it doesn't click to me right away how to do it, I would try to categorize it. I say, okay, this came from the logarithm chapter. And that might prompt you to think of how to start. So just try to put them in categories, but they're going to come to you mixed up. So just, if you keep that in mind, I think that helps. All right, so I picked 4 problems off your review. I picked a couple of systems problems just because it's been a long time since we did systems. They were at the beginning. And that's what this first problem is. And remember, with systems, you try to make 2 equations. So this one says Andre invested $20,500 in 2 separate investment accounts. One of the accounts earned 11% annual interest. The other earned 9% annual interest. If the combined interest earned from both accounts over 1 year was $1,946, how much money was invested in each account? So we need to set our variables, and so I'm going to use X and Y. So I'm going to say X is the amount invested. I won't write all those words. We'll say in the 11%. Right. Y will be the amount invested in the 9%. So we want 2 equations. One equation that you can usually get is your total thing. So we can do that with the total amount invested is 20,500. So if we do X plus Y, we get 20,500. The other equation here we can make from the interest earned. Now this one is based on simple interest, which is I equals PRT. So your interest equals your principal, so your amount you put in it, your rate as a decimal, and your time. Now, fortunately in this problem, your time is 1 year. So your T is 1, which is not going to matter. 1 times anything gives you back the same thing. So when we get expressions for this, P will be our principal, so we'll use the X or Y, and the rate will just switch to a decimal. So our interest for the first one will be 0.11 times X, so your principal times your rate, plus this one will be 0.09, because your decimal goes 2 places to the left, Y. And our total interest was 1,946. And I'm going to leave off that decimal because it's zeros after. All right, you have a choice here. You have the system set up now, and you could isolate a variable and substitute, or you can add multiples of the rows together and make a variable cancel. I think I'm going to go that route. The other thing I'm going to do, which is optional to you, but I don't like these decimals. So I'm going to clear the decimals out, and you can do that by multiplying by 100 all the way across on this one. The downside is that it's going to give you some big numbers, but we'll use the calculator, so it'll be okay. So this will be 11, this will be 9, and this one is going to add 2 more zeros on there. So I have 11x plus 9y equals 194600. Right, and I'm going to bring my other one down. Actually, I don't have to yet. Now, so these two are my equations I'm going to use. And I want to multiply this top one by something, so when I add it to the other one, a variable will cancel. So I'm going to cancel out the y's, and to do that, I need to multiply this top one by a -9, because then that would cancel. So we'll write that one multiplied by -9, and then I'll write that down here. So -9x, -9y, and -9 times 20,500. So it's going to be negative. And we will pull a calculator. So I'm doing -9 times 20,500 equals, and I already put the negative. So 184500. And now we'll add these two equations together. So the y's are going to cancel. That was the plan. So we have 2x equals, and we'll pull our calculator back up. So we have 194600 minus 184,500. Enter. 10,100. And then we'll divide by 2. And that solves for our x. Then you have to substitute back to solve for the y. So this is the amount at 11% that was invested. And I'm going to substitute into this original equation. So 5050 plus y equals 20,500. Subtract. So 15,450, and this would be at the 9%. This was at the 11%. Any questions there? All right, let's check it and make sure I'm right. So at the 11%, and that's why you want to be real careful when you name your variables. So this should be 5,050. Very good. And this one should be 15,450. Right. The next question I picked is number 5, which is also a system. It's just worded a little different. And 4 and 5 there are really from the same question, just different variations so that you could practice a little bit. So this will also be a system. So it says the admission fee at an amusement park is $1.50 for children and $4 for adults. On a certain day, 306 people entered the park. The admission fees collected totaled $934. How many children and how many adults were admitted? All right, so I am going to use X and Y. And so I'm going to let X be my number of children, Y be the number of adults, and so my first equation I'm going to make is with my total. So if I add those up, X plus Y equals 306. Right? Then I'll do it with the money. And so you're going to have to multiply the price times how many went in. So $1.50 is the price for children times how many went in. So 1.50 X plus $4 for adults. So 4 times Y equals, and your total collected is $934. Right, and I did not really have to write the 0. I wrote it because it was money, but you didn't really have to have it because it's at the end. This one, I don't think I'm going to multiply through and get rid of the decimal. I only have one decimal, and I think I'm just going to work with it like we have it. So I am going to get rid of the Y's. And so if I multiply the top one by -4, then I could add to +4 and it would cancel the Y's. So we'll rewrite that equation. So we have -4x, -4y, and -4 times 306 which is -1224. It's okay that those are negative because you're going to have 2 negatives at the end. Right? So I have 1.5 plus a -4 or -4. It doesn't matter which you put it in. 1.5 minus 4 gives me -2.5x. And here I have 934 minus 1224, -290. And then you're going to divide by -2.5. So your 2 negatives will cancel out because you want a positive answer here. So that makes it okay. So x will equal, so we do 290 divided by 2.5, and we get 116. Then you have to substitute back, and I would choose this equation. That's the simplest equation. So I have 116 plus y equals 306, and you will subtract your 116. And I'll just double check that here. Very good. So our number of children is the x, which is 116, and that's why we specified up there. So this is the children, and then the other would be the adults. So 116 on this one, and 190 on the other one. Any question there? All right, so that's just a review of a couple of systems. The next one I picked from this review is problem 18. I picked most of them from the other review, but right? And this one is actually a very easy question, but it has a lot of words. Just don't be scared by that. It is actually one you just plug into. All right, so it says a company that manufactures scooters has a fixed cost of $100,000 per month. So that's like the rent, all that. It costs $80 to produce each scooter. The total cost for the company is the sum of its fixed and variable costs. Write the total cost function as a function of the number of scooters produced. So C of X is going to be your fixed cost, which is 100,000. I'm going to put a comma there to help see it. And then it costs $80 times X, and X would be every scooter produced. All right, so that should be our first answer, total cost. So 100,000 plus 80X, that's good. And then the other question says evaluate C of 90. C of 90 is just saying, okay, how much does it cost to produce 90 scooters? So all you do is plug in. So we get 7,200 plus the 100,000 equals your C of 90. And so it'll be 107,200. So an easy question to do. Let's make sure Mrs. H got it right. Okay, and then it says, thus it costs this to produce 90 scooters. Any question there? All right, the other question I picked from this is not a word problem, but it is one that is just worded a little different, and there is one on your final that you need to know to do this, to tell if something's inverses. So it's not as direct a question as I would actually put. I would probably have put one just find the inverse. But this one, your question on your test, and it's hard to make multiple choice questions, but it gives you a choice. Your choices A, B, and C are like, okay, functions F and G are inverses, functions G and H are inverses, functions and two other are inverses. So this is one way to approach it, like problems 32 and 33 are like, whoops, same kind of question. They're just a little bit different problems, so you should work on both. So anyway, the non-direct way to do those is if you find the composition of both of those and the answer is X. So if you do F composed of G and the answer simplifies to X, and G composed of F, the answer simplifies to X, then they are inverses of each other. So that's what you're going to use for these. So we will do F composed of G. So it's a good time to practice our compositions anyway. All right, and so whichever one is closer to the X is the one going on the inside. So G is going inside of F. So I'm going to go ahead and write F. And then into the X, I'm going to put the G. So I need parentheses here. All right, and so G is inside of F. Okay, that looks good. Let's see what we could do to simplify. We can reduce some here. I don't like this fraction down there. All right, I didn't work it ahead of time. We can reduce with that 2 actually before we multiply. And so, and we can clean up the negative. So if we divide the 2 out, it's going to go into this one 2 times. All right, and the negatives will clear up. So that way we don't have anything to distribute. So we will have x plus 3, but it's still over 2 plus 7. This is not going to simplify to x. So that's okay. We have to just answer it first. I hope I'm not messing this up. So it's not simplifying. I mean, even if we got a common denominator here, which we could, that would be 14 over 2. They could go together, but it's going to be x plus 17. All right, so that's probably what they want for the answer. It doesn't simplify to x, though, so they're not going to be inverses. All right, and they have just separated, they would accept this answer. They have just separated it into 2 pieces, 1/2 x. So this is 1 in front at the sign, putting each one over the same denominator. All right, so that was f of g of x. So these two are not going to be inverses, but we'll go ahead and do the other one. So g of f of x says start with g and put f inside g. So f is going to go inside this x. So we're going to have negative 2x plus 7 plus the 3 over negative 4. And if we clean up here, we'll have negative 2x plus 10 over negative 4. And if we split this into 2 pieces, which we could do, or we could divide out the 2 there. Right, different ways you could work algebraically from this point. We'll just split it since that's what they did. Putting each one over the same denominator. Right, and so this is going to be a positive 1/2 x and a minus, divide both by 2. 2 will go into 10 5 times. 2 will go into 4 2 times. So 1/2 x minus 5/2. Right, and so g is not an inverse. They would have to both be equal to x to be an inverse. Okay. But we reviewed compositions. Let's see if the other one works. And I just wanted to show you guys that because I really didn't like that question on there. All right, so if we find f of g of x and it's equal to x and g of f of x and it's equal to x, then they are inverses. So we can do that without actually finding the inverse. It's easier to find the inverse. All right, so f of g of x says put g inside f. So if we have f to start, I'm going to put g inside it. So inside the x, the whole g. X minus 14 plus 14 All right, and we clean up, and this is out, and the answer to that one is x. All right, so this one is probably going to work. If the other order works, then they will be inverses. So g of f of x, so we start with g, x minus 14. We put all of f inside this x. And this one equals x. These two are inverses. Okay. Right. And let's just go on the side here for a second and remember how to do an inverse, how to find an inverse if you were just finding it. So if it says find the inverse function of f of x equals x plus 14. All right, remember you write this as y. You change the x and y's. And then you isolate y. So you have to subtract the 14. And then you rewrite y as f inverse of x. So those are the steps to find the inverse if you have a direct question. Any question here? This one is good because it gives it to you in multiple choice format. I just picked some and we'll try them. All right, the first one I picked was problem number 2. All three of these top ones are rational expressions, equations with fractions. You need to be able to do one that has a variable in the denominator, because when you have a variable in the denominator, you have to worry about restrictions because you don't want to get a 0 in the denominator. So we're going to choose number 2, but they all work the same way. So we'll go ahead and state our restrictions. When is 6x equal to 0? Well, only if x is equal to 0. So I'm going to just write x cannot be 0 over here on the edge, and it might state that in the question as a restriction. So x can't be 0. We would pick our common denominator, and it would be 30x. And then you multiply everything on the top by a 30. Sorry, by a 30x. And you're doing this to make all your denominators cancel. So this one, there is nothing else to do, just multiply those. On this one, you're going to cancel your denominators. So 6 will go into 35 times. Also, your x cancels. So you have minus 45. And this one, your 5 will go into 36 times. So you have 6 times 12x. And then you just have a linear equation to isolate the variable. So we'll get rid of one of the x's. I'll go ahead and get rid of this 30x. And this will be 18x. And then you're going to divide by negative 18. The two negatives will clean up to give you a positive. This actually will reduce, and remember you can check that in your calculator anytime if you're not comfortable with reducing. There is a common factor of 3 in there. 45 divided by 3 is 15, 18 divided by 3 is 6. And there's still a 3, so I didn't go high enough. There was a 9 in common. So I have to reduce again. 3 will go into 15 5 times, 3 and go into 6 2 times. Right? If you're doing it on your calculator, you can just punch it in. So we'll leave the negatives off, but we can do 45 divided by 18, enter, and switch it back to a fraction. So math, choice number 1, and enter again, 5/2. There you go. We'll reduce every time. And if it doesn't change it, then it means it wouldn't reduce. All right, you guys stop me if you have any question as we go. So 5/2 is our answer, and 2 negatives cleaned up, so this one should be D. And I did pull the answers just to make sure I don't mess up and leave it like that. So D is good. All right, next question I picked, I switched into the other area and I picked number 6 because that was a new topic in this course. And it is dividing complex numbers. So remember, you multiply by the conjugate of the denominator. So we're going to use 4 plus 7i. You do it on the numerator and denominator. And so you have 2 foils there. Remember, if you get I squared, that equals -1 and cleans up. So on your numerator, we have 6 times 4 is 24. We have 7 times 6 is 42i. We have 2i times 4 is 8i. And we have 14i squared. And we'll need to clean that up. Right? We'll drop down here and go ahead and clean that up. And then we'll go back and do the denominator. So the I terms can go together. This is going to be 50i. I squared is -1. So -1 times 14. So we're going to have -14 plus 24, which will give me a 10. And this will be plus 50i. Right. Now we'll do a FOIL on the denominator. And so we have 4 times 4 is 16. Outside and inside should cancel when you multiply conjugates. So this is 28i, -28i. So it does. So I'm not going to write that part. I just wanted to make sure. Then I have minus 49, I squared. I squared is -1 times 49 will make plus 49. So 16 plus 49, 65. And when we look at the answers, we see that this is split to standard form. We could go ahead and reduce first if we want to. There is a common factor of 5 in all the pieces. So that would be okay to do. 5 will go into 10 2 times, 5 will go into 50 10 times, and 5 into 65 13. So standard form would be separated at the sign. So we have 2 over 13, put each one over the same denominator, plus 10 over 13 times I. And we were doing this one. So 2 over 13 plus 10 over 13i. It looks like the choice is A. And yes, that is correct. All right. So next one I picked. I picked 12 just to remind you. So you're going to have some quadratic equations. That is a given for this course. So remember, you have a few ways you can solve quadratic equations. You can factor. Okay, let's use my mouse instead. So 12 is a quadratic equation. And if it looks like a simple problem to factor, do it by factoring and the zero product law. This one looks to me like easy to factor because it has a 1 in the front. So we'll go ahead, a trinomial would do 2 parentheses, like signs both plus, split your x's. Let's see, 8 times 4. 8 times 4 multiplies to give 32 and adds to give 12. And you can double check, there's 4 plus 8 is 12, we're good. Set each one equal to 0 and solve. So x equals -8, x equals -4, and so my choice there would be C. So if you get a quadratic equation, so it needs equals, exponent of 2, and you could do a higher one, and then it would probably be a GCF on it. All right. So factoring is the first technique. If you have one that doesn't look like it will factor, and they even gave a clue here on this, solved by the quadratic formula. So let's do one by the quadratic formula, and you already know these aren't coming out nice, so those would not factor. All right, so we'll just do 13. So you need to make sure you know the quadratic formula. We're in standard form. If you were not, go to standard form. And so my A is 3, my B is 12, and my C is 2. So x is equal to -b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we're going to plug in -b. So -12 plus or minus 12 squared minus 4 times 3 times 2 all over 2 times 3. Then we'll clean up. So -12 plus or minus, this gives 144. And this is 4 times 3 is 12 times 2 is 24 over 6. And so we'll clean up under the radical, -12 plus or minus. This gives us 120 over 6. And then we have to see about simplifying that radical. So we'll do that on the side. It has a 10 in it because it ends in 0. And here is 2 times 5. And here we have 3 times 4, which is some 2's. All right, so groups of 2 factors, the only thing is the 4. So we can take out 1, 2. These will multiply back together, so we have 10 times 3 is 30 underneath. So take 1, 2 to the outside of the radical. 30 is left underneath. Now, you have to see about simplifying here. If you have a common factor around this plus and minus, so it has to be in all the pieces, and you're not touching underneath the radical at this point. All right? And these are all even. So we could divide by 2. That's the easiest thing to spot. This will still be negative. So 2 will go into 12 6 times. 2 will go into 2 one time. You don't have to write the 1 because there is something else there. And 2 into 6 will go 3 times. Now, you're not allowed to divide this out because there's not another number right here. So, let's see. Looks like choice C. And this was question 13. And if you work on this, the answer key is at the end of it. So, I know it's a lot of pages. All right, let's see what I picked next. Let's do one more with the quadratic formula. So we'll get some I solutions. Let's do 15. And normally when you would see this problem, you would think, oh, that might factor. Because it's a trinomial, the coefficient's 1, that's nice. If you tried, it wouldn't factor. But because it's multiple choice, you could look at those answers. Well, this one has regular numbers, but all the others have i's, which means it's not going to factor. All right, so we will go a equals 1, b equals -14, and c equals 65. So x is equal to -b. So b is already negative, so this will be a +14. Plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 65, all over 2 times 1. Right? And then we'll clean up under the radical. Right, -14 squared. And the negative is not going to matter because it's squared. This gives us 196 minus, and we have 4 times 65. 260. You know right here that it's going to give you i's because it's going to be negative under the radical. All right, so we have 196 minus 260. -64. Oh, that's good because it's a perfect square. And so that would be 8 and the I. Now this one will simplify. Around your plus and minus, you have a common factor of 2. So divide everything by 2. 2 will go into 14 7 times. 2 into 8 will go 4 times. And 2 goes into 2 once. You don't need to put the 1 back in the denominator. So 7 plus 4i. And this was 15. So should be choice C. And 15. Good. All right. Next I picked a radical equation. So I picked 17. And I didn't look at the answer on this to see if it works or not. Remember, with radical equations, you have to check them at the end. I picked this one because your radical was not isolated. And that is your first step. You have to isolate the radical before you square both sides. So I'm going to move the x over. And so that'll be a positive x, so I'm just going to put x plus 6. Right, now I will square both sides. On the left-hand side, it's just going to remove your radical. On this side, you're going to need to write it twice and do FOIL. So we have x squared, 6x on the outside, 6x on the inside. I'm just going to go ahead and put those together. Makes 12x plus 36. Write as many steps as you need. And we have a quadratic equation. Seeing the x squared tells you get a 0 on one side. You're not going to be able to isolate. So I'm going to move it so that my x squared stays positive. So I'm going to subtract 2x. That will give me 10x over here. I'm going to subtract 15. That will give me 21. Now I can try to factor this. Looks like 7 and 3. And so x would be -7, x would be -3. You are required to check in the original. So I'm going to have to move this down to have enough space. I'll have to look back over to get my original. So first I'll check the -7. And this one is problem 17. So I'm going to plug it in. 2 times -7 plus 15. That's all under the radical. Minus a -7, don't lose a sign there. Is that equal to 6? All right, so this is -14 plus 15 is a +1. Square root of 1 is 1. And this is a +7. So this side gives us 8. 8 is not equal to 6. So -7 does not check. So then check your -3. And we go back to the original. So 2 times -3 plus 15 minus a -3 equals 6. So we're checking that. So this will be -6. So 15 minus 6 will be 9. Square root of 9 is 3. This will turn into plus. And this one checks. So our answer to it will be only x equals -3. You have to throw the other away. It's extraneous. So C should be our choice for 17. Any question there? So isolate your radical first, and then you will square both sides if it's a square root. I believe you did get square roots on your test. And then make sure you check at the end. All right, next one I picked. I went to problem 24. And we'll leave this picture. And I don't know if I can make that bigger without making a mess. Okay, that's a little better. Right, so if you're given a picture and we are asked to find f of 16, this is saying to you when x equals 16, what is y? So you have to know that that's what it's saying. So, and this scale is not 1. Let's see, 5, 10, 15, no, it's not 5. Each unit is going to be 4. Each ticker is going to be 4. So 4, 8, 12, 16. So here is our 16. Looks like the same scale going up through here. So it would be 4, 8. Right? So this, when x is 16, y is 8. And so this one should be D. Good. Right. Next one I picked is problem 30. And this one has to do with increasing and decreasing functions. So it's back in your second chapter we worked on, but it was called chapter 3, I think. So number 30. All right, remember when you're looking at increasing and decreasing intervals, you're working with X. And you will use parentheses on the intervals. Okay, so it's just put all of them together. So we'll separate it and let's mark the increasing. We'll call them I. Increasing. All right, this is decreasing. This is constant. This one is increasing. This one on the right. So you look down at your scale, 1, 2, 3. Looks to me like it starts increasing at 3. So from 3 to infinity, increasing. Right, and then we'll do decreasing. Right, it's coming from negative infinity to right here. So 1, 2, I think that's a negative 3. So negative infinity goes first. You always write this from left to right. Then your constant interval is a straight line, horizontal line. And it will be from negative 3 to positive 3. All right, so increasing 3 to infinity, this is the only choice that's going to work. Those have brackets. They should not have brackets. Decreasing, negative infinity to negative 3, and constant, negative 3 to 3. So your choice is D. So not a hard thing. It's just been a long time since we did any like that. I did not see any questions on the finals I looked at about even or odd, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. And here you could take the shortcut if you're doing this. If your exponents are all even, it's going to be even. This one would be x to the 0, and so this one's going to be even. But I did not see that on your test. All right, the next one I picked is the line section. Remember with lines that you have several formulas you need to memorize. So I picked 38. And it wants us to put that back down. All right. So we're going to find an equation in slope-intercept form for the lines, and we're given 2 points. So we're going to write the equation of the line. And the information that's required is a slope and 1 point. They did not give you slope, so you have to figure it out. And so we have 2 points. We can use the formula to find the slope. So -7, -4, and -2, 5. So I'm going to call this x1, y1, x2, y2. So our m is change in y's on top over change in x's. So 5 minus, be careful with your signs here, a -4, and -2 minus a -7. Go in the same order. If you do y2 first, you have to do x2 first. So this will make 9 over This makes plus 7 minus 2 is 5. So our slope is 9/5. They did not say anything about parallel or perpendicular here. So we just have to use that slope and 1 point. So you need to know the slope formula. You need to know the point slope form, which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, so that you can plug in. And so we'll just use our point 1. You keep the plane x and y. So I'm going to do y minus y1 is negative 4. And you could have just gone ahead and put that at plus 9/5 times x minus a negative 7. So this will be x plus 7, 9/5, and y plus 4. So if they ask you for a point slope form, this is it. Let's look and see what they asked us for. And we are doing this one, 38. They ask us for slope intercept form. So we're going to have to just do a little work here. To get to slope intercept form, I would first clear the fraction because I don't want to have to change 4 and get a common denominator, which I would have to do if I don't. So I'm going to multiply through by 5. You would also have to do that if you're going to get standard form. So that gives me 5y plus 20 equals, and you can distribute your 9x plus 63. Now, slope intercept form says isolate the y. So we're going to subtract the 20. So we have 5y equals 9x plus 43, and divide by 5 all the way across. So y equals 9/5 x plus 43 over 5. That is slope intercept form. So, and you have to just look really close at these. The only difference between B and D is the negative sign. So my sign is positive on the x, so I'm going to say choice B. And I'll just have a quick look, make sure I didn't make an error, so we're good there. Right, and that mentioned a couple of the formulas you need to know. So how to find the slope, slope intercept form, to switch over to, I'm sorry, this is point slope form. Slope intercept form is isolate the y. If it asks for standard form, like the next one, you get x and y on the same side. Constant on the other side, no fractions. But you can tell no fractions by your answer choices. I would not look at the answer choices first. I would try to get it myself because they're designed to lead you astray. But then, use anything that you have to help you once you're started. All right. Let's see, next one that I picked. I did pick 40 and 41. No, we probably don't need both. I'll just do one. All right, so we'll do 41. So you have to remember parallel and perpendicular. Parallel will have the same slope, so that's giving you information about the slope. And if you don't see the slope, isolate the y so you can read it off. Perpendicular lines have slopes that are negative reciprocals. So for 41, I want my line to be perpendicular. This symbol means perpendicular to negative 5x plus y equals 7. And it's going to pass through 4, 3. So there's our question. So the first thing you have to get is the slope. Get the slope of that line, and then you have to change it because your line is perpendicular to that line. So to get the slope of that line, isolate your y. So move your 5x to the other side. And that was nice. That wasn't too hard. So your slope of that line is coefficient of the x, so it's 5, right? Our slope for perpendicular will be opposite sign and flip it over. So that's 5 over 1. Ours will be a negative 1/5, right? So this is our slope, and we have a point. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So this will be x1, y1. So this will be y minus 3 equals negative 1/5 times x minus 4. Clear your 5 out. So we don't want the fractions. 5y, and that is a 5 there, minus 15. Right, you still have the negative here to distribute, equals negative x plus 4. Right, and let's see what they asked me for. Slope-intercept form, so I'm going to isolate the y. So add a 15. So 5y equals negative x plus 19. Divide by 5. So y equals negative 1/5 x. You can pull that away from the x, plus 19 over 5. So negative 1/5 x plus 19 over 5. It looks like choice A. Sorry, I lost my answer key. 41 is A. All right, I think I have time for another problem. Sorry, I'm just looking to try to. All right, let's go to 55. We'll do a circle by complete the square. And that will probably use up our time. And if you find any others that you want completed, I will be happy to do them. And I'm also happy to do them later and make you a little video. All right, so 55. We have x squared plus y squared plus 12x minus 2y plus 28 equals 0. It's easy to forget these because you work on them in that one section and then you never do them again. All right, so we want to change this equation of the circle into the other form so we can read off the radius and the center. So to do that, you complete the square twice. You get the x terms together. Whoops, that's an x. And then remember, you're going to add your magic number. Get your y terms together. And you're going to add a magic number to make a perfect square. This 28 is getting moved to the other side, so now it is a negative 28. Right? And here it is a half times your coefficient of x. So half times 12 gives us 6. Square it. So 6 squared is 36. That is the number we're going to add here and also here. That's what makes it okay to do. Right? Then we'll do the same thing with the 2. So we have a half times negative 2 gives us negative 1. Square it gives 1. And we add that to both sides. Now we can factor here. And so this will be 6. It picks up this number here we found first. So this will be x plus 6 squared because they're just alike. And this one is going to be y minus 1. It picks up from right here. Or you can just factor it. Those are just alike. And so I have 37 minus 28 is 9. All right, for your center, your form is x minus h and y minus k. So your center will be -6. This one's already minus, so it'll be 1, -6, 1. Your radius is the square root. This is r squared. So radius will be 3. All right, and we were on 55. So -6, 1 with a radius of 3. It looks like choice D. And I'll just double check that. Yes. Any questions you guys have? All right, I'll stop there then.